Hello, everybody. It's Captain Coots, and we're here for our next whiteboard talk. And Choo Choo did challenge me to dress a little nicer this time, so I have. And today, in our design choices with Coots, we're going to be talking about simulation versus games, which is can be a proxy for the discussion of complexity versus simplicity. Sure, there are some simple simulations and some complex games, but generally speaking, they go hand in hand. That simulations are complex and games are much simpler when it comes to modeling reality. So when I sat down and I started to think about, what is a complicated game, what came up to my mind first was GURP. Go away. Yeah, was GURPS. It's a tabletop game, lots and lots and lots of tables. And in fact, I even heard of a Civil War simulation that was based on GURPS, that was tabletop, that somebody had to spend roughly 20 minutes looking up several different tables to figure out which set of dice they had to roll to determine if their cannon hit a target. Right, that's a lot of calculation and complexity there for a simulation-based game. Now you might be like, well, we're in the land of computer games and computers, so all that crunchiness can be handled. Well, that's fine, but then we have like Eve is a perfectly good example where we have market forces here that we're trying to simulate, and it's insane. And then we often are playing with so much data on our HUD that it's kind of hard to tease apart. And a lot of people joke, it's like Eve, the spreadsheet simulator, right? What's true about a lot of simulations is that things are very crunchy. There's a lot of calculations, and there's a lot of calculating that you have to do in order to participate in playing the simulation, right? And so this leaves us with, since we're modding for Fallout 4, we have to ask ourselves, is Fallout a crunchy simulation, right? I have a couple cases here where we can consider the answer to that. So my first question for you is, what do a Deathclaw and a high-level raider have in common? If you guessed bullet sponge, then you and I are on the same wavelength. Now, it might make sense for like the evil, crazy Deathclaw to be able to take a lot of bullets to its face, but to be able to shoot like a high-level raider in the face like 5-6 times and he just keeps coming, that doesn't make any sense, right? If we're trying to capture reality. Exhibit 2, I want us to consider the case of the pencil and the broom. Oh, wait, my proportions are a little off. Okay, that's better. The pencil and the broom. Okay. Now in Fallout, if you scrap a pencil, you're rewarded with 1 lead and 1 wood. And now it'd be totally within the realm of possibility that for you to assume, okay, great, that's what 1 unit of usable wood is, about amount of wood in a pencil, and what 1 unit of lead is. But then when you scrap the broom, what you get is 1 plastic and 2 wood. That would mean that the broom should probably be roughly this big instead, which we know it's not. Okay, and like putting all that together into something different, let's think of the workshop shack wall. Okay, this costs 4 wood and 2 metal to put together. So that means you should be able to craft this wall using the wood that is found in 2 brooms and the metal that is found in an adjustable wrench. That seems about the right kind of coverage and protection. Or even better, if you happen across 2 Brotherhood of Steel holotags and 4 pencils, you should be able to make this wall. The moral of this story is not that Fallout's bad, but that it's not a simulation. It is a game. Okay, so we're not really trying to capture a lot of reality. And so how this came up in modding was we wanted to be able to fuel a truck, and we were using flamer fuel or homemade flamer fuel. Okay, and the original called for just kind of putting these in a pile and then powering the truck off of that. And I even made it a complicated step further. I said, hey, there's 2 other kinds of fuel. Really, there's only 1, and just throw it in the pile and we'll fuel the truck with that. Okay. Well, when we take a look at the code, even the simplest code with just regular and homemade fuel, R and H, whenever you want to check if you're low, it's just R plus H. Is it less than the local fuel cost? That's not bad. Okay. If it is, print a low fuel message. It's not that we can go on a trip. And then we have to ask ourselves, if H is less than the local fuel cost, then we want to use all the homemade fuel available. And then we have to make an adjusted fuel cost, which is the local fuel cost minus the amount that we've already spent on, and then use that amount of the regular fuel. Cool. If we have enough homemade fuel, just use enough of it. Okay, great. If you want to kick this up a notch and use all the types of fuel available, we now have code that looks a little bit something closer to this, where we have R, H, B, and O. Now, I understand the robot stuff is not normally an item that we can get at, but bear with me here, okay? So are we low? We're now checking if the R plus H plus B and the 2 times the optimize. I'm even putting in the fact that we are good with that. If that's less than local fuel cost, print a low message. If it's not, then we go through this nested if statement here of checking is, do we have more than enough H? If not, use it all, adjust my cost. Do we have enough robot stuff? If we don't, use it all, adjust the cost. Do we have enough regular fuel? If we don't, use it all, and then adjust. And then, well, use optimize divided by 2. We're probably going to overspend fuel, but whatever. Okay, and if all of that's fine, then just use enough H. This covers all the different cases, but we look at that complexity, like, why bother with all this overhead? We're probably going to have to be typing all of this in several different places, or at least create a whole new script that now we're calling. So that script has to be attached to something like a quest that has to be running in memory. Oh, Jesus, okay. Now, what I ended up programming, what I suggested was take all these fuel types, and instead, when we combine them, we just create a new item. Okay, now this item is non-transferable. Once you go there, it's a one-way ticket, and we have truck fuel now. Okay, so we have a whole bunch of truck fuel. And so what's the code involved in this? Well, in the simple case here, let's let T be the truck fuel. Your T is just whatever your current T is plus the new fuel that's been added. Zero out the fuel that's been added. And then at the end of the day, are we low? We're just checking if T is less than the local fuel cost. Print a message. And then if we want to make a trip, just say T equals T minus the local fuel cost. Period. Sure, that might be in an if statement or whatever, but that's all there is to it. There's none of this decision making. I mean, ta-da, here's it even with all the complicated formula. We're never going to overspend or things like that. This is all that we're left with. Okay? And so at the end of the day, when we're comparing these two methods, which it might be fair to show the code here. Yeah. All right, I used the most complicated instance of the code. The advantage of doing the more simulation complicated base is you can always retrieve fuel back to use in your flamer weapons. It does, however, increase the overhead complexity, and there are going to be multiple instances where you're going to have to write that whole big structure out. But we have to ask ourselves, is this really a resource gathering simulator that we're playing? Like, is it? And if it is, Fallout might not be the right title for you, okay? If we use the simple one, well, sure, we cannot retrieve fuel back to use in flamer weapons, but we are faced with a much simpler overhead. And frankly, at the end of the day, why am I doing this? I just want to use the truck. I just want to drive the truck places. So why bother with complexity? It's not a simulation. Make it simple. It's a game. All right. That's really it. I want to thank you guys very much for joining me on this second whiteboard talk. And I'll see you guys later. Where is it?